While gazing out from a hilltop in the English countryside for the first time in forever, today's legend saw his life very clearly. 7 years, 6 albums, mega-superstardom, and masses of fans with his current band. Yet, it had all run its course. Fame wasn't all it was cracked up to be. He left it all for a time to focus inward. In fact, this legendary band kept their breakup a secret for over a year. After some time off, the singer wrote a classic song that kicked off one of the greatest solo careers ever. Coming up next, the story of this introvert's journey to solo stardom. I'm Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you've ever listened to an album, an LP, from front to back, all the way through in one sitting and just taking it all in, while reading the liner notes, you're going to dig this one-stop nostalgia shop. Make sure that you subscribe below, hit the red button so you never miss an interview, check the bell. We also have extra content for insiders. It's our Patreon. That helps us keep this a daily channel. You can become an honorary producer, and the link for that is below. So it's time for another edition of our series, The New Standards. This is a show that takes an in-depth look into songs that transcend genre, they transcend decade, fads. These are songs that are monumental touchstones in our culture and society and live forever. In previous episodes, we've covered Dreams by Fleetwood Mac, Cats in the Cradle by Harry Chapin, and Hotel California by Eagles. But today, we're going to break down the timeless classic from 1977, one of my favorites, Solsbury Hill by Peter Gabriel.
Climbing up on Solsbury Hill.
And so it was in August of 1975, Peter Gabriel wrote a letter announcing his departure from Genesis, and he personally delivered it to the English press. In this letter, he outlined his reasons for breaking with his 7-year prog rock project. He said, and I quote, "I found I had begun to look at things as the famous Gabriel. I began to think in business terms, very useful for an often bitten, once shy musician. But treating records and audiences as money was taking me away from them. When performing, there were less shivers up and down the spine." End of quote. Peter also cited a strong desire to spend more time with his family, which was beginning to suffer in his absence. And finally, he wanted artistic independence. Peter Gabriel wanted to take in a wide variety of experiences, and Genesis, due to its ever-increasing success, had become something of a cookie-cutter machine in Peter's eyes. Everyone had their set role, and since things were working financially, it didn't make sense to deviate from that particular script. Peter Gabriel could feel his humanity draining out of him, and he was losing his creative instincts. He said that getting an idea through Genesis, the big, that meant shifting a lot more concrete than its early days. But Peter Gabriel wasn't leaving on bad terms. He still respected his now former bandmates. In fact, Peter Gabriel and Genesis had agreed on the split for about a year before that announcement. In that time, they kept one of rock's biggest secrets under wraps so that Genesis could finish their concert tour of The Lamb and, find a suitable replacement for Gabriel. When the story did come to light, Peter's exodus from Genesis was one of the biggest pop culture shocks of 1975. Many called it an irrational gamble, daft even. After all, Genesis was on the rise commercially at that point. For more than 6 years, they had built up a loyal following, enough to claim supergroup status. They started playing stadiums and prestigious venues. Their most recent album, 1974's The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, was an epic concept record that raked in critical acclaim, and it went gold in both the US and the UK.
This is a trail. I'm counting out time, leaving the carpet crawlers.
But whether it made financial or professional sense or not, Peter just needed a change. I mean, yes, he was proud of his time with Genesis, but he wasn't happy with how he was developing as a person. Said Peter Gabriel, the success we had so badly wanted when we were beginning was, in the end, a trap. Once we'd achieved the massive popularity, we couldn't develop with any freedom. There were so many people involved and so much money involved in the band that it seemed a risk to try to change anything. Everything was geared to preserve us as we were. And Peter was not willing to stay the same at that point, so he waved goodbye to the Genesis Theater, and he went in search for a quieter way of life. Now, as we get into this new horizon, this new journey in Peter Gabriel's musical quest, I do want to recognize our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. For me, wearing Zennies for just nearly 2 years now, it's all about their blue blocks feature that protect your eyes from digital blue light that we get from staring at screens all day. I used to get headaches, sometimes even migraines, frequently. Now, since wearing Zennies, the headaches and especially the migraines have been few and far between. For me, it's made a huge difference. And you can check it out today at zenni.com.
I could see the city light. Wind was blowing.
So there's no doubt that Gabriel relished his time out from his hectic Genesis responsibilities. He returned home to Bath at the end of the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway tour on May 22nd, 1975. It was a time of reassessment and artistic exploration at that point. It was also a time to, as he put it, grow cabbages and children. Life was good. The pressure of the music business, that was a long way away. It was a much-needed return to the human race for him. And although Peter had a solo career in mind, there was no need to rush after it. I needed time to look at things, is what Peter Gabriel said. To get into situations where it was something other than the focal point. But even as Peter Gabriel took that time, breathing into fresh air, artistic inspiration continues to flow with any creative person. He wrote music on his own terms, though, and in his own time until finally he knew the sabbatical was over. In 1976, Peter made a serious return to recording, inaugurating what would become a storied solo career. And not surprisingly, his new material was as different from Genesis as he could possibly make it. With a collection of new demos in hand, Gabriel went in search of a producer. And after speaking with several candidates, he settled on a surprising choice, Bob Ezrin, famed at that time for producing Alice Cooper, Kiss, and Lou Reed. Peter Gabriel played Ezrin his demo of Here Comes the Flood, a phenomenal song. And apparently Bob enjoyed the song so much that he went to bed that night singing it.
Lord, here comes the flood.
Now, the two developed an immediate rapport and agreed to split the production duties. The album was recorded at the soundstage in Toronto in the autumn of '76. Later sessions followed at Morgan and Olympic Studios in London. Now, since Gabriel wasn't sure about what parts he could and could not perform, he agreed to let Bob Ezrin bring in his band of trusted house musicians. Among them was bassist Tony Levin, who has played on hundreds of recordings, a session musician and a guest artist. Peter also suggested legendary guitarist Robert Fripp, another amazingly talented musician who, of course, collaborated with Brian Eno, David Bowie, Andy Summers, the Talking Heads, Blondie, and Daryl Hall, just to name a few. But even with a good supporting cast, it was still an unnerving experience for Peter Gabriel. He was so used to having a defined role in Genesis that this newfound flexibility felt a little overwhelming. It was going to take some time getting used to, but Gabriel he'd get there. Now, later on, he would say that it would take 3 albums to get the confidence that he needed.
So I went from day to day.
His first album was very much an experiment. Peter really wanted this first record to be different from anything he'd done with Genesis, like I said. It had to be a statement about his own artistic vision. Said Gabriel about it, "With the album, I've tried to get away from Genesis and really establish a separate identity. I hope, I've succeeded." Now, at the end of the sessions, Peter emerged with 9 original songs in just as many different styles and voices. The solo debut was released on February 24th, 1977. And as with his next 3 albums, this one was untitled, usually referred to as either Peter Gabriel 1 or Car, a reference to its rain-splattered windshield cover image, brilliant cover. Less abstract and more personal than his work with Genesis, the album was both a commercial and critical hit.
My life was in a rut. Till I thought
And what was even better, Peter Gabriel was finally getting the artistic credibility as a writer that he had longed for. Actually, in his days with Genesis, people just assumed he wrote everything since he was the frontman. But after, when he left the group Genesis, the next album more or less sounded the same, and people began to question his contributions from there.
they got no horns and they got no tail.
This was his vindication. Included within this menagerie of post-Genesis manifestos were 2 singles, Modern Love, and of course today's feature, Solsbury Hill. Solsbury Hill was released as Peter Gabriel's very first single on March 21st, 1977. Reportedly, he wrote the song about a spiritual experience that he had atop Little Solsbury Hill in Somerset, England. As the story goes, Peter Gabriel went for a stroll through the countryside to ponder the meaning of life. very thoughtful and reflective guy. This was something that he would do very often. About a half mile from his home, Peter came to a small flat-topped uprising of earth, Solsbury Hill. It was actually the site of an ancient Iron Age fort, rising about 620 feet above the River Avon. This was located about a mile to the south. The summit provided a spectacular view of the city of Bath and the surrounding Cotswolds area, which is known for its incredible beauty. It's no wonder then that after reaching the top that Peter Gabriel had a profound spiritual experience. As you follow along with the lyrics of the song, I think you can get a sense of exactly what happened. I'm not sure how literal or poetic the passages are, but it's fair to say it's probably a blend of the two. In terms of timing, the story presumably takes place while he was still a part of Genesis, actually. The opening of the song is the only time the name of the hill is even mentioned.
Climbing up on Solsbury Hill.
But the picture that Peter's lyrics or words invoke thereafter are guaranteed not to let you forget its significance. As he stared out over the city light, the wind was blowing, and he saw an eagle flying out of the night.
Still, eagle flew out of the night.
Felt like a moment. It was frozen in time. Then as Peter stood there watching, he heard a voice.
Came in close, I heard a voice.
Peter could not believe the information. However, he had to trust his imagination.
Just have to trust imagination.
With his heart going boom, 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 Peter hears or feels a profound message.
My heart going boom, boom, boom. Son,
It's the closest thing that the song has in the way of a chorus, really.
he said, grab your things, I've come to take you home.
Interestingly, these now iconic lines were actually not Peter's original intent. According to Bob Ezrin, a prior draft said, "Son, make your life a taxi, not a tomb." However, Ezrin didn't like it. He thought the language was ugly, and he felt like more memorable lyrics were needed to make the song a hit. But it makes you wonder, if the line, "Son, make your life a taxi, not a tomb," that may have been closer to Peter Gabriel's original epiphany on Solsbury Hill. For me, I like that line a lot better. It's such poetry. When we get to the second verse, we find that Peter has decided to keep quiet about his experience. His friends would think he was a nut if they knew.
My friends would think I was a nut.
Clearly, he has felt something directing him to leave Genesis, but he's hesitant to act. Appropriately, he cites the biblical imagery of turning water into wine, as in this would be an undertaking of a miraculous in scope, really.
Turning water into wine.
No doubt, it's a risky choice. Forsaking fame and fortune and security and a best-selling group all just to go his own way. Doors that had once been open might well be shut at this point. So even though his life is in a rut, Peter Gabriel continues on a day-to-day in his regular routine. And I guess that kind of makes sense. Change is kind of scary. Most of us don't typically step out into the unknown without first weighing the risks or thinking very deeply, pondering about it. But by the end of the verse, the price of staying stagnant is just too much. And so Gabriel sings, "I was feeling part of the scenery. I walked right out of the machinery." It's an act of hope. It's like Peter believing that there's something better out there for him, even if he can't see it at this point. In verse 3, my favorite, Peter Gabriel brings his tale to a close. Illusion spins her net. He's never where he wants to be. And I love this next line. "And liberty, she pirouette, when I think that I am free." Watched by empty silhouettes who close their eyes but still can see. No one taught them etiquette. I will show another me. I guess it always seems like real freedom is somewhere other than where we are right now. We're always chasing something, It's just a brilliant observation by Peter Gabriel. As the song reaches its climax, we get to do this. Today I don't need a replacement. I'll tell them what the smile on my face meant. To me, this is like Peter Gabriel saying, "This is me." He's finally doing it. He's going after it. And that smile on his face, it just says it all. Whether it all works out or not, Peter Gabriel has made his choice. He's at peace with it. It's the freedom to make that choice that's his own journey. That's what makes it so beautiful. The story of Solsbury Hill is about personal revelation, tough life choices, and breaking free from whatever is holding you back from being what you're meant to be. According to Peter Gabriel, it's about being prepared to lose what you have for what you might get, or what you are for what you might be. It's all about letting go, and I love that. It's one of those inspiring songs that we need to hear from time to time to remind us, make us shake off our contentment and strive for something better. I mean, look, our situations are clearly different from Peter Gabriel's. I mean, none of us have been a lead singer of Genesis, unless, of course, you're Phil Collins or Ray Wilson if they're watching. But we all have faced some version of this dilemma in our own lives. We all know what it's like to take risks to trade the familiar for the potential payoff of our dreams. Yeah, we've all felt those moments when our hearts go boom, boom, boom. But really, with a song like Solsbury Hill as part of the soundtrack of our lives, we can find the courage to do what needs to be done, or, rise from our cocoon and become our best selves. Honestly, this song really gave me perspective when I was deciding to kind of take that step into the unknown when I started doing Professor of Rock. I had a really great job. I had a company. I just had a lot of things going on, and I really had to take a risk. I believed in what I was doing, and so I did it. And it took a long time, but it worked out. But that's what we do. That's what great music does. It makes us open our eyes to the possibilities. And those possibilities become a reality because the music, it forces us to look at that, to look at what could be, and we go after it. And I'm just so grateful for this song because it really helped to spark me to step out and to do that. So believe it or not, I guess at one point Peter Gabriel was going to leave Solsbury Hill off the album altogether. I guess he just didn't see it as a single, let alone a musical manifesto that would inspire millions. But thankfully, he warmed up to it. I mean, really, there couldn't have been a better song that could have kicked off his solo career. The stars really aligned for this particular song. Solsbury Hill was released on March 21st, 1977, and the single climbed to number 13 in the UK. Stayed on that chart for, I think it was 9 weeks. However, in the US, Solsbury Hill was only a minor hit. Actually peaked at number 68 on the Hot 100. Spent a total of 8 weeks there, and despite being recorded in Canada, barely broke the top 100 there. It came in at a lowly number 92. It did see greater success in Europe, where it went to number 17 in Belgium, 16 in Germany, and 13 in the Netherlands. But more importantly, with the passage of time, Solsbury Hill has become a Peter Gabriel staple on the radio and, of course, a phenomenon as far as the song goes. And then there's a really cool moment that happened back in 1982. Peter Gabriel briefly reunited with Genesis for the Six of the Best event. At this point, Peter had been out of the band for just as long as he'd been in it, 7 years. His solo career was finally starting to take shape. But I guess he ran into some financial problems after a disaster of a concert. So Peter Gabriel called on his bandmates, his brothers, to help him get him out of the red, I guess you'd say, with a one-off Genesis reunion show. Since for the most part, everyone was still on good terms, Peter's former bandmates were happy to oblige and help him out. They played to an enormous crowd in Milton Keynes, England. And the bandmates took the stage in the midst of a pounding rainstorm. And no stranger to theatrics, Peter Gabriel was even carried onto the stage in a coffin. And during the show, the only one of Peter's solo songs was performed during the show was, you guessed it, Solsbury Hill. It's a little ironic, right? Playing a song specifically about leaving your former band, accompanied by your former band. Very cool. Leave us a comment about Peter Gabriel and Solsbury Hill. What are your memories of this song? Has it helped you to make a great life decision? Let us know in the comments below, and let us know about Genesis and Peter Gabriel. Let's have a great discussion. If you want some more coverage of Peter Gabriel, there's more to come. We also have a piece on In Your Eyes. I'll link to it below. Make sure to subscribe if you like this channel, if you like what you're seeing. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Help us keep the music alive. That's the whole idea here. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Talk to you soon.